Okay, so Jamie, welcome to Class A People.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. I actually connected with your sister first.
You did, yes.
Yeah, so she got in touch with me via TikTok and sent me some of... You've got two businesses.
No, so one of them is her boyfriend's business, and I have my own business.
So her boyfriend owns one of the businesses.
Unai, yeah, the
Unai,
drinks, yes.
because yeah, she sent me some. Very kind of her.
It's delicious.
Yeah, they are good. And then you've got your business.
Mattr, yes. And she kind of does stuff for both of us, which is great, very handy.
Handy.
Very handy, yeah, because her boyfriend is one of my best friends as well. That's how they met through me.
Okay, fine.
So it's all
okay,
kind
so
of in the
you
family.
were the person that got them together.
I don't think I pushed them together, certainly not at the beginning. They just happened to be around me a lot of the time, both of them, and then they ended up getting together, which at the beginning was pretty rocky. But then,
Yeah, did you not love that? Best friend with the sister.
Just because I live with him, and we were single men in London at one point, and but then people grow up, and they've been together for 4 or 5 years now. So,
Okay, he's proven his worth.
Yeah, and it's great now.
Yeah, you nearly said that he's going to...
Well, maybe, you don't know, we'll see, brother-in-law potentially. So.
Okay, but we're here to talk about you.
Yeah, we're here to talk about me.
We are. So, childhood for you, I was going to go back to that because were you diagnosed with ADHD when you were young?
No, I was diagnosed much like you when I was...
30?
Yeah, 31, so I know you were 2020, right? I was 2021.
Well, I had 2 tests because I just wanted to make sure,
Well, I've got, so childhood for me, diagnosed with dyslexia very early. So that's when I kind of started to, it wasn't called neurodivergence then, it was just special needs, right?
Yeah.
So I always knew kind of about my brain being different. And to be honest, I look back at some of my school reports, I'm like, how did you not discover the ADHD? Like, it's so obvious. Like,
in what way?
Just, disruptive in class.
Oh, right, yeah.
Talks too much, always wants to act like a joker, blah, blah, blah.
But that's the stigma for me as a female. And late diagnosis was, I can't have ADHD. That's the naughty little boys from school.
It's more of a hyperactivity of the mind in females, right? And
so
that's people are learning about that a lot more now, where it's like young ADHD boys kind of show the signs, like you were saying, whereas girls don't present as much. But I was showing all of the signs, but still nothing, just naughty, disruptive. And that damages you a lot when you're a kid, because you're kind of like, I don't really know how to do anything different because my body is making me do this. Do you know what I mean? You don't have that dopamine regulation. I
think as well, having things like dyslexia stamped on you from a young age, especially if you're the only one, you immediately do feel different.
100%.
And if you're the naughty one, it's always related to attention seeking, when actually you're just trying to get a little bit of a dopamine hit. Yeah. You don't even know what dopamine is, so
you just need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you make it through school? Did you find school easy in terms of what was it like for friendships and kind of education-wise for you?
Yeah, kind of rocky, to be honest, because I used to get in trouble a lot, right? And it was never anything bad, right? But it was just being a naughty kid, basically. I remember there was one incident. Well, basically what happened was I was born in the Middle East in Dubai when Dubai was not a thing, right? It was becoming a thing, and it was 1990s. It was still we used to have to clamp up our wheelie bins because we had feral camels that would come round and try and eat out the bins. So that's what I'm talking about. We didn't have a road. The second time we lived there, I didn't have a tarmac road. It was literally a full-on desert that you had to drive through. So that's what Dubai was like back then. And obviously it was massively growing. It was booming completely. And so I grew up there, and then basically we ended up coming to England when I was 5. And I remember having a complete tantrum because it was the first time I'd ever seen stairs in a house, because we lived in a bungalow. I remember just screaming about having to live in this house with stairs and throwing this huge tantrum. And I vividly remember that kind of whole incident because my dad could not get me to shut up and screaming. It was very, very strange. And then basically I went into school in the UK, which was very different from Dubai. Dubai, you finish school at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then you do loads of activities because it's just too hot to actually be at school. And kids didn't know what Dubai was. I got a little bit of bullying there. There wasn't that much diversity in this school, so the occasional kind of comment, because obviously I'm mixed race, was thrown at me, and then I got in a lot of trouble there, just trying desperately to kind of fit in. So then anyway, we ended up going back to Dubai, and my mum and dad's relationship was breaking down quite a lot at this point. And I think my dad thought he was really happy the first time we were there, had a young baby, doing really well at work. He thought, well, let's just go back there and it'll all be the same. But actually, it wasn't. And then what happened then was my mum came back to England. I came back and ended up going to like a quite posh boarding school because my dad stayed in Dubai and they covered it. So he was like, oh, that would be great, like, you know. But that was really, really kind of traumatic.
Boarding school in Dubai or boarding school
in England?
Yeah.
In the UK, because my dad stayed in Dubai, and one of the things was, if you stay here and your family want to go somewhere else, we will put them through education. So the bank kind of covered it. And yeah, so I was kind of doing that. My mum went back to work as an air hostess, so I was kind of in and out of boarding. Like sometimes I would be all right to stay at home. Sometimes I'd have to go into boarding. So I never really was settled. So sometimes I was moving between. And then I just had like really awful headmaster, really awful house master, and they really affected me when I was between the ages of 10 and 13. I really hated school, hated everything.
Did you have that whole hierarchy, you know, situation? Yeah, it's weird boarding school. I was the same, and I hated it. But I loved being at home, and I couldn't understand why I was being told to stay at school.
Yeah, especially when you're that young. Because I always say it's funny because my partner Sarah, she comes from very kind of like normal like background, so like boarding school stuff is just alien to her. And whenever we see like kids that are like 9, I'm like, look how young that person is. Like I was at school, like all your bed had to be like, you know, militant standards of bed and tidiness and things like that. And I'm like, that's how old I was. That like kids obviously 9 years old, and they look like little children now. But you know, I was kind of having to be a little bit more
independent.
More grown.
And did you struggle there? Terms,
I hate
when
it.
you say a bad headmaster and housemaster, that's quite bad. That's a bit of a double whammy.
Yeah, both of them were
like bullies.
Awful. Yeah, yeah, really
abusive of power, really.
100%.
In powerful positions.
100%. Yeah. I mean, there was one. So we can go into like a pretty serious incident that happened there. So basically, we had a Russian exchange student or something come over, and he had a really thick Russian accent. And I mean, this is just like, you know, the audacity for someone to call me racist when I had kids ask me if I had a bomb in my bag, you know, call me the P word, or like loads of times, right? And I mimicked his Russian accent to him, you know, but I wasn't being.
You're also a child.
Yeah, I was 11 years old or something like that, 12 years old. And I mimicked cause I thought he sounded like a Bond villain, because I was just like, he did sound like a Bond villain, do you know what I mean? And anyway, he then said this to a housemaster, and this housemaster had it out for me, right? So he just wanted something.
Any excuse.
And this is big, you know, you've made this Russian exchange student feel awful. And I was literally not trying to make him feel awful. I was like, oh, it's cool that you've got this really like villain voice. You know, like I was 12 years old. So I remember him asking me, so he suspended me from boarding and said, your mum's just going to have to deal with you or something like that now because you're not staying in this boarding house, like blah, blah, blah. And I remember this line to me. He said, do you like your sister? Because he knew I had a sister. She's 5 years younger than me. So at this point, my sister would have been like 8 or 7 or something like that. He said, do you like your sister? And I said, yeah. And he goes, good, because you're going to be seeing a lot more of her now because you're suspended. So he literally had this line. So then, basically, as a punishment for what I'd done, it got raised up to the headmaster, who also had it out for me. So as a punishment for what I'd done, bear in mind, let me set the scene. I'm 12 years old. It was right in summer when this happened. And his office used to look out over the playing fields. So he said every single break time for a week, morning and afternoon, you were going to come and you were going to put your nose on the window and you were going to look out at everyone playing for a week. And if you turn around or take your nose off that window at any point, you're doing another week.
Wow.
And I had to stand in there and do that for a week. And that really broke me. And it was really.
And did the other children know that was you were doing?
They could see me.
Yeah.
They could just see me. They're breathing on this thing, you know. I mean, one of the other punishments I had was I had to lick like 300 envelopes. You know what I mean? They put me in a room with like a load of envelopes, like lick all these envelopes and close them. That time that was at my other school before then, so that was like fine.
So really, you've had absolutely no good experience so far of an educational system or adults.
Well, when I actually left that school and went into secondary school, I actually loved it. And I boarded there as well, but that was by choice, and just because it was completely different. Like the teaching was different, everyone was way more normal, it wasn't so intense, and so actually from 13 to 16 I was like, oh my god, this is actually
This is
great.
what school's supposed to be like.
This is fun, I'm enjoying being here, the people are nice, but I mean like that was just bullying from adults, and I just don't get it. How can you be that horrible and cruel to a 12-year-old child.
Because it's easy to be horrible to a child, you know, especially if you're in a position of power, technically, you know, you're above them.
My dad says it's his biggest regret in life.
Sending you to boarding school?
Not taking me out of that school. I think I was fairly good at masking. I just knew that they were going through like a ton of stuff. My mum's going back to work. My dad's on his own in Dubai.
Did you talk to them about being bullied?
A bit, but probably didn't tell them. Like, I just wanted to make them happier. I just didn't want them to always have problems. I mean, remember my dad always talked about this story about how he said he wanted to punch one of my teachers because the first day of the school term, they went to my dad when he was picking me up from school and said, I hope we don't have any problems with him this year. And he said, you know, can I swear on this?
Yeah, to say whatever you want.
He said, fuck's sake, like, give the kid a chance. He's been here for one day.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the first day and you've already saying...
And
like,
made a prejudgment, really.
Yeah, and my dad was like, I wanted to punch that teacher in the face. So you should have, to be fair.
But he didn't take you out?
No, he didn't. And we could have, at 11, I could have been taken out. But he just thought, like, it's so much disruption for you all the time.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And I think, but I mean, definitely would have been the right decision.
So you get through school. How were you with exams and things like that?
I was like classic ADHD, super intelligent, just can't get it on the paper. If it was a talking exam, I would have absolutely nailed it. Yeah.
But I say that, I don't think I was ever academically, like what you would class as school bright.
Yeah, book smart.
Yeah, book smart. I was not that at all. And I always really struggled with being asked a specific question on an exam paper and answering it specifically. But then it's like, no, you need to think outside of the question. I was like, what? Why don't you just ask me what the outside question is then? Do you know what I mean?
100%.
What's your kind of thoughts on the educational system sort of now?
I just think exams are just like totally crazy. Like, so for instance, when I was at uni, so I got through secondary, I got GCSEs, completely average basically, like not good, not bad, just B's and C's. Like,
Did you work hard?
I worked as hard as I could work, and I knew, like, I struggled, obviously, with the dyslexia side of things. And if I'm not interested in something, I am not interested in it.
Yeah.
It makes my body physically convulse to be, like, not interested in something. Like, for instance, I can't iron because I just hate it so much. Like, I pay for the iron to be done. Because I also hate creases. Like, my ADHD, autism brain's like, I can't have crease goes, but I also just cannot sit there. It would just drive me nuts. So, like, physics, I'm just not interested in this. Like, who is interested in this, right? Whereas things I was quite, like, I loved history. Like, I loved history. But then the teacher bullied me in history. So I actually walked out when I was 15 I just got up and I was like, you know what, I'm just not going to take this anymore. I'm just going to walk out. And I called my mum and I just said, I've just walked out of school. I told the teacher basically to, you know, F off. And I've walked out, I'm not having it anymore. And he made me sit at the front of the class, at the front there, and he would teach behind me, if that made sense. So all the kids sat there, and then I sat my face on a wall, and he would teach from behind. So I couldn't actually even see the board. And so I said...
There's a lot of singling out going on.
Yeah. And it actually turns out, weirdly, that his whole CV and his whole life was a fraud.
No.
So they found out after I left, Mr. Jeffries, that he just lied about everything. He was never in these places.
Mad.
And yeah, so I walked out the school and just called my mum and said, this is what happened. And she basically took me in to the headmaster and was just like, you know, we're paying all this money for this education, you can't even see the board. Like, if he fails, then your teachers, and so obviously then, next history lesson, I walked in, sat with all the other kids, and I felt super smug.
Yeah, I find it quite bizarre that the educational system is the way that it is, that you put sort of 20 kids in a room and expect them to connect with one teacher, you know, and nothing's changed really since we were at school, really, like the curriculum or anything like that. I always find it quite bizarre that we don't learn sort of at 18, we don't talk about mortgages, or we don't talk about how to, I don't know, change the fucking salt in your dishwasher, or, you know, filter dry cleaner, you know, all of these things.
Life skills. There should be a life skills module.
I didn't understand, and then I sort of get down this rabbit hole of thinking, well, it's to keep us dumb, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's kind of where I'm at now with alcohol. It's like, they had to pick one, and they made it legal, and it's that beautiful way of it working within their society of 9 to 5, when you'll be a little bit hungover and just about get the cogs turning again, and then you're pissed. You know, there's kind of like just keeping everyone dulled down in this sort of merry-go-round of society.
Yeah.
And a neurodivergent person does not fit into that.
But it's funny because they need us more now than ever because the world's got big problems and it's not going to be solved without different thought. And if you have a look at all the great inventors, and I mean, just look at the past. I mean, like Leonardo da Vinci, Neurodivergent. You know, what's her bloody name? Who wrote those murder books? The female, what's her name? Oh, for God's sake, the most famous writer, novelist. It's going to piss me off. Anyway, she was severely dyslexic, and she was like the most famous. And I can't remember her bloody name. It's one of those things. She wrote all those murder mystery books and things. And you know, all these amazing people throughout history that have designed and built and thought and written. So many of them have been neurodivergent. I mean, it's crazy, right? 46% of all self-made millionaires are dyslexic, right? Which shows you, like, they can do it in their way, right? And that's kind of what I'm finding with running my own business now. It's like, I don't have to do it in the way you want to do it. And we're doing such great things. Whereas before I thought, God, I'm just going to be doing this boring, you know, job the whole time and I can't do what I want.
I found that as well, but I think it's about like getting to a place of trusting your brain, like trusting your ADHD, you know,
God,
like,
yeah.
I think it's when you're doing things around neurotypical people, or you work for neurotypical people, or you work for a corporate where, you know, there's no sense of differentiation between, you know, it's just the way that things are done. I found that when you start to trust yourself and actually just go with it. I mean, even this, for example, like not ever having celebrities on, you know, doing real people with real stories. You know, I used to, but prior to even being clean and sober, I would always think that a big person would gain followers, you know, but why? Because like you've got this huge space of sobriety, but how many times are you going to listen to a certain person's story?
Yeah.
And no sobriety story is the same.
Of course.
And no ADHD story is really the same. It's again, there's common traits, but now we have the mix of, like yourself,
AuDHD, yeah.
AuDHD, or, you know, but then we have the problem of the misdiagnosis of depression when actually you've got ADHD. And, you know, there's also this thing that I've read about recently, which is pharmaceuticals actually just created ADHD because there's depression. Depression is the core. And then they've got these sort of handles off of it, which are autism, ADHD, and you think, well, that would work in terms of making money through medication.
It's definitely not true.
I know it's not true, but I'm saying the problem is that with the rise of something like this, you're always going to get people that go against it. You know, there's people that don't believe in ADHD.
If you follow me on my post yesterday, on my story, someone literally commented that exact thing. ADHD is made up. All you lot need to stop whining and stop being so lazy. And then what I did was I replied to the comment in the story, so you know it comes up.
Yeah.
And he messaged me, DM'd me, and it's like, ha, look how triggered you are by my thing. I'm like, I said, hold on a minute, like, you're the one that commented that, and I thought you would want, I messaged him back and said, no, I just wanted to give more exposure because you must be the world's leading psychiatrist because you clearly have an opinion of no other person in your field. So I just wanted to give that more. And he goes, well, it's my opinion, and I stand by it. And I said, yes, but you know, there's a difference between opinion and fact. And he goes, well, I don't know why you're so asked about. I don't know why you're so asked about it anyway. We're all going to end up dead at some point, or something like that. He said. And I went, well, there you go. You've learnt what a fact is. Of course, you know, that's the first fact you said in this conversation. So we still get people saying that all the time. I did a piece for the Times, and do you know what's so crazy, right? Is ADHD is a disability, like whether or not you think it is or not, like technically by whatever disability means, it's a protected disability in this country. And disability discrimination is like, you wouldn't do it for any other thing, but ADHD it's a free-for-all. You can say whatever you want about it.
Do you think though that's because, and this is where, you know, the problem with I'm seeing at the moment, first and foremost, trying to get an ADHD diagnosis.
Yep.
Second of all, people maybe think that they have ADHD when they don't, because we have grown up in the generation of screens, and therefore naturally as a generation we are just more distracted than before. People not understanding internal ADHD, people not having an understanding of the difference between male and female ADHD. Really it just boils down to education, but it also comes down to misinformation and people having platforms and not really having the facts to back things up, or maybe, you know, and people believing that stuff.
I think what's happened is, so if we look at ADHD, right? So ADHD could only be, diagnosed in adults from 2008 onwards. No, I'm fine. From 2008 onwards. Okay, so anyone going in with any ADHD symptoms, as someone over the age of 18, prior to 2008 could not have been diagnosed with ADHD in this country, in England, right? They could not have been diagnosed with ADHD. So they got diagnosed with a whole list of things, you know, depression, low mood,
anxiety.
and anxieties. And the problem with that is, it's been a double whammy, especially for women, because they presented so much of this stuff that, like, so many women were diagnosed with bipolar.
Yeah.
Now, the drugs they give you to treat that are called SSRIs, and SSRIs make ADHD worse, right? So you're literally pumping them full of things that make their condition worse. So what's happened after 2008, loads more people have been diagnosed with ADHD. And then now there's all this awareness. Now you've got social media talking about, okay, we're getting diagnosed. So actually, they were lagging. It's not like there's a huge overdiagnosis, in my opinion. There was a massive underdiagnosis. So now you're kind of just at the normal level of what should have been diagnosed prior to 2008. But because there's so much more awareness about it, and people have platforms like yourself and, you know, ADHD Chatter and all these type of things, they can talk about it, and then people then start going, oh, that might be me.
Yeah.
Whereas I've known I've had ADHD my whole life. Since I knew what ADHD was, I tried to get diagnosed. Very funny story. Actually, I was listening on the way up here to some of your podcasts.
What, when I got diagnosed in the Zoom call?
Yeah, with the charger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, that's a prime example, right? Because that makes it sound quite funny.
Yeah.
Okay. And it is, that is a prime example of this whole, like, chaotic, and I am like that, this disorganization and, you know, losing things and all of that. But that's only one side of it.
Of
you
course.
know, I'm level 9 on the spectrum of all of that stuff, and the internal side of it, I don't think it's talked about enough.
Of course.
This hyperactivity in the brain.
Oh yeah.
But that's where, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but people trying to get people to understand the addiction side with that, especially
100%.
something like cocaine. And, you know, we're talking about SSRIs. The reason why cocaine is so attractive to someone with a level of ADHD is because it makes the brain go quiet. When I started talking about that, people were like, oh my God, you know, I've never heard anyone say that.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why something like an amphetamine, for example, for me, is great, but for someone who is not neurodivergent, I mean, it'd be like you taking cocaine. You know?
Methylphenidate, which is the chemical that's in L-Vans, which is one of the main drugs. It's very similar to
Speed.
To speed. Yeah, and you get a lot of, and it's great for working and stuff like that. But you do get some of the, you know, kind of symptoms that you probably don't want with things like that. Like, you know, sometimes I'll just lie in bed and I'm like, I cannot sleep right now. Like,
what I've learnt with that, okay, and we are in a lucky position, both of us, because I actually now, through becoming a lot more accepting of having ADHD, is I've worked out that I don't have to produce work at 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, like, I actually work a lot better from the hours of, like, midnight till 2 o'clock in the morning. Bizarre, but that's just how I.
That's you, though.
That's me. But when you start to accept it, but that's very difficult to do if you don't have a hybrid or have your own business, or the way that you can control how you work. And
exactly.
That's kind of one of the big issues that we have with it. Is like, we are trying to pigeonhole people into a working lifestyle that doesn't suit them.
Nope.
But just back to your point on you always knowing that you had ADHD.
Yeah. From when I understood what ADHD was.
Yes, but my problem was that I didn't want to have ADHD. And I feel bad about that now, because I have come to such a place of
acceptance.
Yeah. But that's the same, I think, with anything, isn't it? That you have the reason why, and I think it's very interesting to say, is that I was that person that associated ADHD with all the bits that I thought were just quite easy to just be able to you should just be able to do that, Hannah. You know, like, why can't you get somewhere on time? Or all of the things that maybe people would consider is what ADHD just is. And then when I started to understand all the kind of maybe the darker sides to it and the internal sides to it, and became more educated on it, I became more accepting of it. You knowing, me getting diagnosed then, I don't know if you're the same, I then had the opportunity to look back and be like, oh, actually, that was showing up so much sooner.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I always give the analogy that, like, when you get told you have ADHD, like, diagnosed by a psychiatrist, I felt like I've been walking around my whole life with a backpack full of, like, dumbbells and weights, and someone just took it off me.
See, I didn't have that, because at the time I got diagnosed, it was such a trend. It was such a thing that I was like, I don't want to be
part of like a bandwagon.
Part of it. And also, I was getting sick of hearing people talk about it.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually was. I was like, oh my God, yeah, you've got ADHD, great.
Get over it.
So is the rest of the fucking world.
Yeah.
And then when I started to really learn about it, and I had the diagnosis by a psychiatrist, and I was like, okay.
And this is the point that I was getting back to, which is that people don't give it any. People want to put it as a attention-seeking thing, right?
Yeah.
And so you get these comments from boomers more often than not, that are just like, this is a load of bollocks. In my day, we just pulled our socks up and got on with it.
Same with addiction, though.
And all this, all this type of stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole argument there about addiction, whether or not that's an illness or, and that's that whole thing
Family,
about,
inherited. Or...
Exactly. It's like, but the thing is with ADHD is it's an incurable disability by law, okay? Yeah. Right, so you wouldn't say anything like that to someone with any sort of other,
Yeah.
And I had to learn. So we're invested in by a company called Addict, who are a venture capital firm, and one of the people that found us from there is this most amazing woman called Celia. Celia's 26 or something like that. She can never eat or drink in her whole life. She has to have all of her nutrients deposited to her by a Hickman line, which is a line that goes into stomach, and she walks around with a backpack that's got nutrients in. So she'll never eat, she'll never drink, she doesn't know about taste, nothing. Right?
From birth?
I don't know. I don't know when from. I haven't ever asked her, but certainly now, when she has to have the backpack on, and that feeds her. And she taught me a lot about ableism, and essentially what ableism is just pretending that everyone can just do stuff, and it's very like, well, why can't you just do that, or whatever it is. And what I did, which she told me is me being ableist, was kind of been like, oh, I shouldn't ever moan or shouldn't ever talk about ADHD because look what you've got to deal with, right? You're in a wheelchair, look what you've got to deal with. Who am I to say like my ADHD? She's like, no, because now you're just ranking disabilities. That's what you're doing in your head. And that is ableism. You're prioritizing different disabilities because they said, those people might have really quiet minds and, have never gone into bed and just been filled with dread, fear, worry, anxiety, brought up something you did when you were 10 years old. Do you know what I mean? Like, they might think to myself, oh my God, I would hate to have that brain. So you think your disability is, you're ranking your disability, but you don't know what their opinions are on what they would probably never want to have your ADHD brain, and they would have your disability. So we got to stop ranking disabilities. Like, if a disability, they're disabilities. And we got to start being more serious and accepting of people that have to deal with ADHD.
Do you still feel like there's quite a jokey connotation around ADHD?
Of course there is, but that's from people that, you know what I mean? Like, you've dealt with ADHD your whole life. ADHD was one of the reasons that you nearly died, right? Because it's a huge contributing factor in addiction, and ADHD could have killed you. I mean, look, I can reel off. I'm very much against anyone calling any form of neurodivergence a superpower, right? So there's this crowd where some people call it that. If you want to call it that, fine. I don't. And because people see high-functioning ADHD people that are on podcasts, that are running businesses, that are doing this and that, and they go, oh, they're all ADHD people are amazing. It must be great. They're the tiny minutiae.
Yeah.
The amount of ADHD, I think it's...
Also, they've gone through quite a lot of fucking backlog to get there. So, like, someone commented on one of my videos the other day being like, I just don't understand how you could possibly have ADHD when you have been so consistent with this. And I'm like, yeah, because I found my thing.
Yeah, because I've got hyperfocus on something that gives me dopamine.
Yeah, like, I'm obsessed with it. Yeah. And I probably have cross-addicted into doing it, plus the ADHD diet. But, yeah, I finally found something that's working perfectly in tandem with my brain right now. But it's that, again, it's that, like, jibe of, well, you can't possibly have it.
No, I mean, look...
Because, why? Though that's your opinion. Because why? Because I've been able to focus on something. An ADHD person, it doesn't, just because it's got the connotation that you can't focus doesn't mean you can't. It's the thing. You want to sit me in a room and put you in front of a physics book. Yeah.
No.
You're not going to see me focus.
No.
You put me on a podcast or you put me in connection with another human being who's got ADHD. Then you'll see me thrive.
Yeah.
You want to see connection, put two ADHD people together, and that'll really...
Well, you're seeing it now.
Exactly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for 100%.
Like, we never met. We've never met. And it's
but
like...
it feels like we have.
It's just,
you know what I mean?
It's the best, I would say, for me, the best thing about having ADHD. I mean, like, the immediate connection you make with another person is... That's a cool thing. I
think also I have what I call spidey sense. I can just tell bad vibes, like, straight away.
Yeah.
Like, I can just feel energy. I always say this and people think I'm like... sound like kind of like one of those hippies that probably lives in America about talking about energies, but I get bad vibes. My COO at my business is an old investment banker. He's not old, he's the same age as me, but he used to work in investment banking, corporate type, went to Durham, did economics, or not Durham, Warwick, did economics, lived a completely different life. And I used to say this to him at the beginning, like, I'm feeling it. There's a bad vibe there. And he was always like, oh no, like what you're talking about, like it's in your head. And then it just kept being right. And then now he's like, I completely,
tell me what you think.
Yeah, he's like, I completely agree with you now. Like,
it's interesting you say that, because like at school, and again, we have this thing that we do as ADHD people. Like, I know it's going to sound weird, but, and my thing was like, genuinely, I sometimes think that I was psychic, like, because it's that thing that you're saying, not actually saying
it's
the future,
pattern recognition,
but vibes, getting a feeling of something. And I used to get so frustrated that you could be rewarded for getting a grade in an exam, but like your social awareness, your kind of streetwise capabilities and things like that, all your sort of ability to, which is a blessing and a curse, kind of be a chameleon in kind of situations that maybe you wouldn't usually be natural in, but you can adjust to all of these different things. That's incredible. But it can be a disadvantage when you forget then who you are, because
you beat me to it. I was literally just about to say, like, you wear so many masks. You wear so many masks, and then you just forget, like, who actually is Jamie. Like, at one point I'm doing this, or who's Hannah, and then I'm doing this, and I'm trying to fit into this corporate world here, then I'm trying to do that, and then you're like, actually, who the hell am I?
God,
Which one of these am I?
You were saying before that, obviously, this ratio of people with ADHD and running their own businesses.
Yeah. So
did you leave that sales job because of this constant negative talk you had towards yourself?
No. What happened was there was a big global pandemic, which I'm sure you remember.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know. So apparently someone in China ate a bat, but I do not believe that. So anyway, they put all of the sales staff on furlough. At the time, I was working for a very fast-moving startup in the modelling industry. And when I started there, I was employee number 5. When I left, I was employee number 40. We opened in Paris and New York. It was a very fun job, especially as a young single guy in London. You know, I spent my life either hanging out with models or going to cool events, or working with really cool brands like Ciroc Vodka, Estee Lauder. Like, it was very fun and exciting. And then it was like furlough, in your house, no job. And that's when I really struggled. And that's when I had to address the ADHD side of me, because I just could not deal with the lack of stimulation, like, and the not knowing when it was going to end, you know, and the constant negative news, and not knowing if I had a job, and this just sitting there with my own thoughts. So I actually tried to get diagnosed when I was 24. So this was my second time of getting diagnosed. And the reason I didn't get diagnosed at 24 is because, just like you and your diagnosis story, I did something pretty erratic in the diagnosis, which was, I did it face to face, and they give you all these forms, like, you have to
Which I find bizarre, by the way.
Yeah. Forms to the ADHD person. And then they give it to a family member who's known your whole life.
Yes.
To cross-correlate to see where their similarities lie. And I took it away, did it, my mum did it, or my mum did it, filled it in, and then me, just being me, and my ADHD little land just went and popped it in the post, in the post box with a second-class stamp on it when it weighed like a kilo.
Yeah.
Right, so it's like a parcel, you know? And I just like, whoop, popped in. And then they were like, we never got your forms. I'm like, well, I posted them. Yeah. And they were like, well, we never got them, so you need to redo the whole test.
And that's just hell on earth.
And, well, no, at this point, I asked my mum, I begged my mum. I lost my first 2 jobs in probation. I didn't make it out of probation for my first 2 jobs. And they were both like, distracted, won't sit still, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I need this medication, otherwise I'm never going to make it in life. And they said it's another. My mum paid for this diagnosis, obviously, and so I just had such shame about me doing this. So I just lied to her and said they don't have it.
Did you?
So I lied to her, and then I dealt with basically having it for 10 years until I got to the pandemic, where I was like, oh my God, like, this is the worst thing in the world. I've got no stimulation, I've got no routine, and that's when I saw a psychiatrist. And I went in thinking I was getting diagnosed with ADHD, and I came out getting diagnosed with auDHD, which is autism and ADHD combined, which is very, very, like, much more common now. A lot of people are getting diagnosed with that. And
I find that one really, I find that hard to imagine, because they're stressful. So juxtaposing, you know, 100%. One extreme, you know, chaos and messiness is kind of the one linked to ADHD. Not always, but quite common. But autism quite likes things to be
in their place.
In their place.
Yeah.
So how does that work? Like, is it okay if it's your mess?
So
for me, I don't even notice that it's getting messy, and then it gets to a certain point and I go, oh my god, and then I will have the biggest tidy that will result in, I'll think I'm starting out with just tidying my bedroom or doing the house, and then it results in I got to do a massive clothes clear out, or it spends a whole day and then I get bored of it.
Because you just get hyper focused on it for a bit, giving you dopamine. You're like, yes, this is great, look how clean it looks, and then it's like, now I'm bored of doing it.
And how I managed to then whip it straight back into being a complete pit within a couple of days, after telling myself, I've got to keep it clutch, got to keep it tidy.
Well, I think also, I remember at the beginning, what I was talking about at the beginning was I was at really militant boarding school where if you were not clean and tidy and had things, like, you got in serious shit. And so Sarah, my partner, thinks it's from the boarding school and the autism. Like, I hate things being on the floor, right? And Sarah loves a floor right? And I hate it. It stresses me out. So I end up just tidying it away and putting it in the wrong place. She's like, I can't find this jacket. And I'm like, well, why don't you put it where you want to put it then? And I'm not hanging it in some place. And so
my mum always says to me, she goes, when you take it off, just put it on the hanger and put it in the cupboard. And this is the thing of, like, you know, we were saying earlier, when people say, well, you just can. And that's really hard sometimes when you see it as a simple task yourself. And I do. It is a simple task. But I struggle with it so much.
I know. So does she. It's the same thing. I'm nearly 1,000% convinced she's got ADHD. I mean, she has every single symptom. So, yeah.
Do you find it hard sometimes, like diagnosing people that you know?
My mum 100% has ADHD.
Yeah, my dad.
Yeah,
sure.
100%.
And I think he has OCD and I don't know the difference between autism and ADHD, because there's differences there as well. There's some similarities. But you can't really diagnose someone on behalf.
No, I can't. And I think it's so funny because my stepdad basically is like, since listening to all your podcasts, I totally agree with you, because she has all of the symptoms, and more often than not, like addiction stuff, it's in the family. It's
transcends down.
Yes, of course. Yeah,
and manifests.
Yeah, and she has every single symptom possible, but they just wouldn't have had that in the 60s or whenever she was born, right? Well, it was there, obviously. Like all those kids that were obsessed with their little toy trains and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, they're probably autistic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, he's just a bit different, isn't he?
He's a bit odd.
Yeah, probably got autism.
You mentioned Sarah, though, your partner.
Yes.
Now, dating.
Yes.
Talk to me, because you are now the owner of a dating app.
Yes.
Called Mattr. First of all, how did you get into that? And second of all, dating, your history.
Yeah. Oh, goodness me. This could be a whole episode on its own, so I'll try and be to the point. So, Mattr, what Mattr is a place for, basically, if you know the dating app field, which was started for people to discuss sexual desires in a safe space where they can talk about that, where they don't feel weird putting down all of their fetishes or alternative lifestyles, is that we are basically that, but for your mind. So we've created a safe environment for people to be very vulnerable at the beginning of your dating journey. So you can talk about your struggles with addiction. I can talk about how I've got ADHD and autism and how that's going to present in our future possible relationship. But you don't have to wait 3, 4, 5 dates and mask yourself and pretend to be someone you're not. You literally have it on your profile, and everyone's got it on their profile, right? And it doesn't have to be as deep as an autism thing. It can just be like, listen, I am chronically late, so just lie to me about the date times. And we see loads of different people putting different things there. So that's basically the idea behind Mattr, is it's allowing you to have more vulnerable and deeper conversations than you would on a Tinder, Hinge or a Bumble at the beginning. And we also have a lot of neurodivergent accessibility in the product, because lots of our users are neurodivergent because they want to talk about their neurodivergence in a place.
Like, naturally, for people who are neurodivergent, we don't want to ever ask questions like, so what do you do for a living?
Yeah,
I want to know, where does your trauma come from?
Yeah.
Like, I don't, and I want to ask that question straight away. I don't want to talk about your dog, know. I mean, maybe sometimes I do, but most of the time I want to get to know someone on the deepest level possible.
From the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, it's like, you always see those TikTokers that take the piss out of kind of like girls, like prompts on Hinge, and they're like, they do.
Yeah.
And it's like, how many times do you actually go for a long walk and a roast? Like, seriously, all you people that write that down, how many long walks and roasts?
What have you done? You've set up that profile and you've Googled good Hinge prompts.
But they're not good because everyone's got them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, when I was on Hinge, it was like, give me travel tips for Japan. It's like, oh my God, like, do you realise that like every other woman's asking for the same, like it's...
And also you don't stand out. It's like that,
of course.
It's like that rare app. I mean, everyone is a founder or a bloody
yeah.
executive. And I'm thinking, and no one puts anything in the bio because apparently you're supposed to be mysterious on it. Why would I want to be with someone that's
I know, Rye is so hilarious because it like matches you with people all around the world.
I find that bizarre. Like, honestly, unless you're going to fly me out to New York, we're never going to meet.
Yeah, exactly. Bizarre. But
and you're going to pay £20 a month for it.
Yeah, well, I mean that I have a different opinion on now because obviously I run a dating business.
Yes.
Because we're not charities and we are trying to connect people, but I like the fact it makes everyone pay because then it doesn't have this kind of like, oh, they're paying, should I pay, should I not? Like everyone just pays to be on Raya. Very interesting fact, you've got more chance of getting into Harvard than you have of getting into Raya.
Yeah. Oh.
More people apply to Harvard and get in as a percentage than have applied to Raya.
It's probably very odd that I got in, because I got into it when I had the interior design business, not when I
was on it,
a profile of, a TikTok profile.
Yeah.
But I don't find it conducive at all. At all. I don't. And I've had 2 matches the whole time that I've been on. I think that's because in my bio it says, if you've had some therapy, that would be great.
Yeah, but that is good. Because we say at Mattr, be for someone, not for everyone. Dating apps have completely changed like the game where it's like, oh my God, I can swipe the whole of my city. Like I can just sit here and put an age range in and I can swipe thousands of people. That is not normal. No. And that is very, very damaging to the ADHD brain. So I basically, after my ADHD diagnosis, when I was doing online dating, I wanted to talk about more deep things. I wanted to write about ADHD and autism on my profile, but I just felt like I couldn't. Like I was like, no one understands this. Like I'm not going to get matches. And I also was like, during the pandemic, if you look, I mean, obviously I work in the dating app industry, so I look at these things, but obviously no one else would. But the amount to spend on dating apps, right? You look at the pandemic, it looks like Burj Khalifa. It's like, shoop, like this. Yeah. So everyone's just sitting there trying to connect with people, paying loads of money into these things, even though they could never actually physically, until the government told you could go out. And so I was like, look, having this being unlimited, having it being paid for, having it being so superficial, and having it in the hands of like especially ADHD people, this is really dangerous. Like there's no guarding, there's no like when the fun stops like gambling apps do, like where you can put limits on it and stuff. It's like you can spend a serious amount of money on a dating app if you want.
And time, like anything like an app for someone with. If you connect with an app, I mean, I will be honest, TikTok for me is like... that for me is...
It's crack.
Is heaven. It takes me completely out of my own mind. It is the only... Like, I could just be so quiet up there when I go on that app. And it is real. It's just...
Whatever you've done to your TikTok, by the way, I think you should, you've cracked it. Because you literally come up on my TikTok... There in the corner, coming back.
I don't know what it is.
And you're always there.
I never
open it up. It's like, oh, I
never do a set time schedule. I do 4 videos a day, and sometimes I haven't. But I don't know. People ask me that all the time. I have no set.
You're always there whenever I open it. You're like, it's an ad, and then it's your face, like, literally all the time. And what I love about your videos is you don't edit them, as you don't clip. Like you just talk normally, and I feel like you're having a conversation with your audience. It's really great. There's another guy called Ryan in Recovery.
He's been on here.
Has he?
Yeah.
Oh my God, and I love his content too because he does the same thing. I'm just like, just talk to me. I don't care about it being perfect.
Yeah.
Like I just want to hear the
he's got a great story.
Yeah, and also I'm really into dance music, so I'm always trying to work out who he's talking about.
He talks about them on the podcast. You listen to his episode.
I will. I'll do it on the way home.
Yeah, he gives you a few names.
Oh my God, amazing.
A few name drops. Okay, so Mattr.
Mattr, yeah. So I started Mattr because I was like, I was working at this point after the pandemic. I've got a really big job where I was working for a massive, massive content agency, one of the biggest in the world. And I was having meetings all the time with really senior people from YouTube, from TikTok, from Mattr. And in that world, they basically have this metric that they're always trying to get up, right? And it's to do with activity. They say this word, like, how can we get the users to be more active? How do we increase the activity times? Blah, 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 blah. But you could just change activity to addicted, and it would mean the exact same thing. How do we get them more addicted to the platform? Yeah. How do we create more addiction time? Yeah. And I was just saying, like, oh my God, like these algorithms are all designed to get us hooked, and then you're just replacing another addiction with a dopamine addiction, which you're just like, oh, pyramids into making a carbonara, into a lawn mowing video. And you're like, what's coming next, right? And that's exactly what dating apps do. They have unlimited profiles. You don't know what's behind the next door, and you're just in there like this hamster wheel. And you get what's called the paradox of choice. The paradox of choice is where you think when you're presented with too much choice, you think negatively about the choice you're given. Now, I'll give you an analogy. You go into a restaurant and the menu is 6 pages long. You think the food's shit, right? Yes. You're like, they can't cook all this, right? Whereas you go in a restaurant, they've got 4 mains. You're like, this is good quality, right? It's the same with dating. So what's happening is people are going to these mass market Tinder, Bumble, Hinges, and they're going, oh, there's no one out there. They're all crap, la la. It's because you've got too much choice. The human brain, and
ADHD choice paralysis as well, by the way.
Yeah, I hate that. I did it last night. I went for dinner last night, and the menu was like just too big.
And then I'll just always go for something that I know. And then I get annoyed because I haven't tried something new. And then
I just hit set menu thing at the back, and like it just comes out.
But I mean choice paralysis in terms of like on a dating app, but also this sort of system of swiping.
Yeah,
it's addictive for people.
Of course it is. Of course it is. And so,
but yeah, you're right. This thing of like never think, and then as soon as someone doesn't match you back, that's like, oh my god.
Yeah, and that's why people spend loads of money on them and like want to chuck out super swipes and all these types of things. But interestingly, right, the human brain can only handle maximum 9 choices given to it. Wow. 9. That is the maximum your brain can handle before it starts to think either negatively of a choice or it can't give 100% attention. If you have more than 9 choices in anything, your brain physically, and it's between 5 and 9, right? So on the lower end of it, it's 5 choices. And that's why, like, sometimes when you go into a shop and you're like, oh my God, like, what do I get from here? There's just too much stuff. So we have on our profile and on our app, we give you 5 people a day. That's it. We tell you why we've matched you, like a matchmaker would. And then you have to message to connect. You can't just send a like. You have to say, like, why are you interrupting why are you coming into my space? And you have to open the profile to be able to send a message. So all the way through, we do little changes the behavior. You're not just swiping. So many people don't open the profiles on Bumble and Tinder. They're just swiping. That person could be in there like, I hate puppies. Do you know what I mean? But their face looks nice, and you just swipe right on them. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You don't know what that person is.
I really feel like sometimes people forget that the look side of things. Obviously, of course, you have to have a sexual attraction to somebody. Of course. But you are going to get old. Yeah, that is going to fade. That's not going to be there forever. So there has to be something deeper than that.
Sarah's my best mate. Like, honestly, I know that sounds really cringe, but she's like my mate. It's not cringe,
though, and we have a tendency to do that as well with ADHD people who go, oh, it's just luck, or, oh, it's just, we do that. But actually, it's not cringe. It's just, that's a great thing to say. I think being a best friend is an amazing start. Do you know what I mean?
We just get on really, really well. And obviously, in my job before, I was dated models and whatever because I work with them, and I'm not in any way being like, oh, I'm the big I am.
Part of that was like,
but that was an ego thing for me, big time, and it was so boring.
But also, like, it's kind of like other people maybe can't get these type of women, but I can, and
Well, it's just in that. The thing is, people say that, but it was just like it wasn't. It was to do more with the fact that like that was just my job. So I was just meeting these people anyway. It was just like.
It's surprising though with your ADHD because I mean I can I can meet a really good looking guy, but if I can't talk, I can't get stimulation from the energy of talking. I couldn't be less interested if I tried.
But that was just like, it was just me and my, like, it was just, like, everyone in the office who was a guy there had a model girlfriend because we worked in a modelling company, right? So if I didn't have a model girlfriend, I was the only one that didn't have it. But yeah, and I remember going on holiday with my ex-girlfriend and it being, like, the most bored. I've never been so bored in my whole life. She didn't eat or drink anything because she had a shoot when she got back. We were in Italy, so no carbs.
Oh my gosh.
We were also in an all-inclusive and obviously...
Buffet.
Yeah, and also, like, she just, well, I mean... I drink, so I work like really, really hard at work, and she had times where she wouldn't work for a week, right? Because she'd be on a shoot. So she didn't get the whole like, I'm on holiday, I want to go and have a beer, or I'm going to go and do this. And she's just one of those people that could just sit on the beach and for a whole week. And I was like, sorry, what? She's like, I just want to sit here and read. I'm like, what, in silence? I'm like, there's a free bar. Like, there's a bar, there's a ping pong, there's games. She's like, well, you can go and do that.
On my own.
I'm like, okay, so I entered in a ping pong competition and played it on my own while she just sat on the beach. So that's when I realised, I was like, you can't fucking do this. Like, this is mental. So yeah, that's why we started Mattr. And then going back to your point of the dating. So I think a lot of people with ADHD will listen to this and kind of get this, but dating is a form of addiction. And like, now you've got a big tool in your pocket where you can just go around and date whoever you like all the time. And you get addicted to that because it's new people. It's them asking loads of questions about you. It's a new part of town. It's like really quite dangerous if you've got ADHD. And especially if you are drinking or going out and stuff like that, you could be like, yeah, like Monday night, I can fit someone in, Tuesday night. And then you're just in this perpetual cycle of just being addicted to this whole dating life. And the sex obviously gives you dopamine highs and things like that. And I really thought like I was going to do that forever. Like I just thought I could never be with one person. No, because then where am I going to get these floods of dopamine from all these people? This is prior to my diagnosis. And there's two content creators called I'm Paying Attention. I don't know if you know them. They do infographics. They're 2 females. And very bravely, one of them wrote her dating addiction story out and put it in the Times. The comments were turned off, thank God. Because she was like, oh yeah, I slept with hundreds of guys at uni because I just loved being center of attention. I just loved going out and not knowing where I'd go back to. And then I realized it was like my undiagnosed ADHD was just chasing that. And so hypersexuality is what this is called. It's very, very common in ADHD people, which is where you are getting dopamine from sexual activities and dating. And I really was in that for 3 years, and it was exhausting, and I thought I would have, and I just told myself I'll have to do this forever. And this time I was drinking and quite a lot of drugs at the same time too. And then that all packaged up together was just like, that was my big dopamine getter, was, you know, sex, drugs and rock and roll. And I was like, I can't do this forever, but I thought I would.
Did you ever get worried that, you know, because you got so much out of that you wouldn't be able to have sex with one person sort of in a monogamous relationship?
Yeah, I think it's like, I articulate, like Sarah knows all about this, and told you, Sarah's amazing, right? But she understands like hypersexuality as a thing in the ADHD. Like, she's one of these great partners where you can send them like psychiatrist content and be like, this is it explained, and she'll sit there and watch it. Which I think if you are dating a neurodivergent person or any form of, even if it's addiction, you should be learning at all times. Like, you listen to podcasts about your partner because then you understand. And so she understands now, like, what hypersexuality is, how we manage it in our relationship, what, you know, and the fact that I can't control it. Like, it's part of my ADHD.
How do you control it?
Well, I mean, I it's hard, right? But, you know, there's different ways. I mean, you know, I'm not going to divulge all of what goes on behind the door in here because, you know, she's not consented me to do that. But it takes, you know, you need two of you need to be on board with doing it. But the alternative to that is you don't have a partner that's ever going to be satisfied, and it's very hard to not, because I can't get it from anywhere else.
Would you say then, like, so it was a combination of all of it, the drugs, the drink, and that?
Well,
you didn't ever go fully into one specific.
The thing about me is I'm very lucky in the sense that I was never like you were with alcohol. I can have one glass of wine and I'm quite happy. I like the taste of it and it goes well with my meal. And then I go home and I listen to some stuff that you talk about, and I don't have that addictive, I need to finish a whole bottle, I have to get cocaine. But it didn't take very much for you to go, shall we get a bag in? And me go, yeah, right? But
interestingly, I've never had this. I have ADHD, but I've never had the hypersexuality.
Sexuality,
so
yeah.
This is the same thing. Like, I mean,
it presents in so many different ways.
Exactly.
Because cocaine and men is horrific. Yeah. I see my friends, right, do the stupidest things sexually, like try to, you know, on cocaine that they would never in a million years do.
Guys, it's been a common thing through the guys that have come on the podcast and talked about, you know, the things that they will do that are mad, really, because they'll just sit there and watch porn and they don't even have a heart.
Or go to prostitutes, they can't even get it up, and they just fly there.
And waste money on coke, prostitutes, and then they can't even get the, you know.
I mean, some of the stuff I did back in the day, like with my hypersexuality and cocaine and drinking, I literally want to die from thinking about some of those things. I mean, some of them are just so completely crazy. I mean, I left, I give you one example. We've been broken up a very long time now, and she definitely won't be listened to, so it's totally fine. But I was dating, it was a long-term relationship, and this girl that I'd been with before, she was high on Mandy for a festival, and she was just sending me videos of her, you know, playing with herself, basically. And I left my girlfriend's housewarming party, got a taxi the whole way across London, and slept with her, and then got a taxi back, and just made up this completely fabricated story that I was meant to be at somewhere else, and I turned my phone off. And can you imagine how I felt coming back in the taxi, like to that house party where my girlfriend was having a housewarming party, and I left there. I even left my friends there that I'd invited because I just could not. Like, I was just so, she was just sending me these videos. Yeah, because I was like, oh my God, like, she wants me so much, she's giving me validation. Like, I have to go. Like, this will never happen again.
It's fascinating because like because I've been cheated on so many times. I've never had that sort of.
I think it's
what's interesting, but what I don't know if it's necessarily a male thing, but I know that it's more. I don't want to generalize, but it's definitely more prominent with men and coke. The whole sort of sex thing. Yeah, I mean, I was always more interested in just doing all the coke and really not interested in anything else. But there have been women that have come on the podcast that it's completely affected their. You know, they've turned into complete different versions and doing sexual acts that they wouldn't really want to do when they were sober, but that's the.
You lose it. Cocaine makes you lose your inhibitions, right? So, and that's why why you see the gay scene is so drug fueled.
Yeah.
You know, chemsex parties and things like that.
I mean, I get that. Like, I tried G, and
I just can't.
Absolutely,
I would never.
You would never.
I just think there's something about drinking a drug that I just won't. Other than alcohol.
Yeah.
Other than alcohol, yeah.
Something about G. I mean, it's very popular in the gay scene. It's a dangerous one though, because the measurements you have to get obviously are very precise. But it's, I mean, I can understand why.
Really?
I can understand why they like it.
Don't say that to me. My friend nearly died from G.
But that's the measurement side of it.
Yeah.
But again, I was very blasé with that. Someone turned up, we were on a 3-day sesh, the coke wasn't doing anything anymore. Someone said they had G. I was thinking, well, I'm not getting anything off this, maybe. But the whole room went quiet with the measurements of this thing, and I trusted someone that it would be.
Yeah.
And then I learned about that, and I was
Pipettes and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. It's funny, like when new drug instruments start coming in, that you start to get a little bit nervous.
Oh yeah, I did DMT once.
Yeah.
Have you done that? So I did that in it, but I did it in like a crack pipe basically, and I was like, I'm not sure how I feel about
this. Yeah, but
this.
it's just because it's got the connotation of crack to it.
Yeah, and I'm like, we had that like, that like jet lighter thing underneath it, and I'm like, I'm not sure about this.
I feel really quite groggy.
It's meant to be spiritual, right? Like it's meant to be spiritual, because this doesn't feel spiritual. This feels like crack vibes.
Yeah, I feel like
But it's intense. DMT is
very intense. Yeah.
Very intense.
Well, that's really going into the psyche.
Psychonauts, yeah.
Um,
Are you sober from like everything? Then?
Yeah.
So even like psychedelics and things like that.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people do.
I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
I am interested in it. I promised myself a year abstinent. I'm very interested in mushrooms and psilocybin for ADHD. I don't know if you know anything about that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm a real big.
Saying that, I have been very lucky that I've had a very, very positive experience now with Elvance, and I kind of don't want to fix something that's not broken. And I question whether is it my addict brain saying, let's go and see if there's something else that might be a bit better.
What milligram are you on, if you don't mind me asking?
30.
Okay.
But I'm about to go up to 40, but the issue is I lost so much weight.
Yes.
And my BMI at the moment is low.
Yeah.
So yeah, that whole, I didn't have any information on any of that stuff. I had no idea how much it was going to affect my weight. I mean,
So I get so hungry in the evening, so the whole day I just can't eat anything, and then at the end.
Are you on it?
Yeah.
Elvance?
Yeah. 70 though.
Fuck
But I don't take
me.
70, but I can. Yeah, that's my do. 50 and a 20. They don't even do I think they do a 70 pill, but I make them give me a 50 and a 20.
So you can choose.
I never have done 70 in my life, but but then I just don't want to feel like too
Wired.
Yeah, I don't enjoy that. I just get clammy and sweaty. But on the mushroom side of things, I'm quite a big believer in how that's very good for ADHD brains, but I don't do it I don't do microdosing I just do it to just it gets rid of all my anxieties, and I feel very connected to nature and all that kind of stuff. Chocolates.
Chocolate, yeah.
Because you just little nibbles like a little rabbit throughout the day, and it just makes me feel like no anxiety. And so I don't do.
It's interesting, like with my ADHD, sometimes I want to be on and I want to be really ADHD, and then other times I want to be. I don't. And so you can't really choose that with the medication. I do find like my medication is obviously it's amphetamine, so I'm on.
Yeah.
But
do you take it every single day then?
I do.
Yeah. So I don't take it the weekend.
Yeah.
And you're not meant to take it every single day. You're meant to give yourself breaks.
But I've been told to take mine every single day.
Really?
Yeah.
Because if you okay, I mean I'm not a doctor, so I can't.
I know. Mine, I tried
methylphenidate.
methylphenidate. It was different.
What was that one? Yeah, Concerta.
No, it was just called methylphenidate.
Oh right, okay, sorry.
But you said at the start there's
Methylphenidate.
Methylphenidate.
Yeah.
But the box was called methylphenidate. I don't know. Anyway, I ended up crushing it up and
Snorting it. I heard,
snorting it with cocaine. So that one was a no-go for the second time round. But the Elvance was bizarre because I was finally clean and sober, and then I took it, no idea what it was going to be like, and then it reminded me of shit coke, but I was also not drunk, and I was like, oh my, this is psychologically very, very odd.
I find it. I want to ask you a question about it, which is I hear people talking about podcasts like I took it and then immediately my brain went quiet.
Don't get that.
I think it's bullshit.
Don't get that.
I don't think that physically can happen.
I just do not have that experience.
No, I don't.
My brain has never ever once gone quiet.
Yeah.
Never.
No,
apart from when I took copious amounts of cocaine.
Yeah.
And if I'm on TikTok, honestly.
Yeah.
And that noise thing, whatever that is.
Noise.
That long brown noise or white noise.
Oh, white noise. Yeah.
But there's one sound on TikTok that is just this long sound, and I sit there and it is unbelievable. I'll send it to you.
Please do.
It blows my mind.
My mind will never be calm.
But the medication certainly does not.
No, but it does. What it does for me, the medication is, I would tell myself I couldn't do something, and now I don't. That's what the medication did for me. It gave me much more confidence to be able to get through stuff in my job.
And I would say the negative self-talk.
Yeah.
That for me, stopping. And I don't know if that's I'm sure it's a combination of being sober and the medication.
I'm believing in yourself more now.
Yeah.
You can do it. I saw you got your 7-month badge the other day, right?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
So you've done something amazing. I mean, a few months ago, you would have thought that would have been completely impossible. Me, when I couldn't get through 2 probations at work, thinking, oh my God, I run a business with 5 people and we're changing loads of lives and stuff. Like, I would have thought you were absolutely crazy. Like what? But then after the diagnosis and actually understanding more about my condition and getting access to medication, I believe in myself more.
Do you think there's power as well in working in it? You know, like I'm working like within addiction and ADHD, you're the same. Like something about like kind of being around it makes it feel more normal.
I just feel like people just you can talk about it more now and people get it more because there's more awareness. So I just feel like it's not really as big of a deal as it probably was a few years ago. Like you said, like I didn't want to be diagnosed with ADHD, whereas I think there's so much exposure around it now that like I just tell people I've got ADHD or I'm autistic. Like I just tell people that.
Do you feel more insecure about one versus the other?
The autism side of things, my parents were very like, whoa. Like, because then I'm like dyslexic, autistic, and ADHD. It's like, what haven't you got? Do you know what I mean? Like, they didn't like that. The ADHD thing, a lot of people had told them about ADHD, but when I told them about the autism side of things, because they think of autism as like really, really like on the spectrum. They think you just think undateables, right? Whereas autism now, a lot of more people are talking about it who are presenting. You know, because I really hate like really busy places where there's noises everywhere, and I used to get like very much like close-shouldered like this, and I never really knew, like I was just like, oh, maybe I just don't like it. But then when I learned about the autism, it's like, no, it's a sensory overload autistic thing. But I hate certain noises, like I can't be like I hate them, like the tube noises. I hate. If I was Prime Minister, the first thing I'd do is I'd ban motorbikes. I hate them. I hate the noise of it. It makes my skin crawl. It gives me anxiety, and they always go up and down my road, motorbikes all the time, and I just would ban them. So finding out about the autism was like, oh my God, that's why I'm so sensitive to sounds.
Do you have kind of like things that you really dislike about having ADHD and autism?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Well, the thing I dislike the most is I have no patience. I absolutely love music, and especially dance music, and I've tried so many times to do music production, but it's just, you need so much patience, and it's like hearing like monotonous claps and loops and bangs, and I just can't. Like, it makes me so stressed, like it makes me angry even doing it, and I just know I'm never going to be able to produce music, and that makes me really sad, because that's the thing I like the most in life is music, and I just do not have the patience or the capacity, and that's my ADHD not allowing me to sit there and twiddle with it, and my autism just like hating the sounds. So that's the one thing I hate is the patience. What do I like about it? I'm very organised.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm super organised. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm always everywhere on time. Because my autism side of the brain is like organised. I have like colour coordinated calendars. Like I have, I know where everything is. Blah blah blah. So I love that. And the ADHD side, which I really like, is like we said earlier, I can go into any room with anyone from any social economic group, and I will find something that I can talk to you about within the first 30 seconds. You could be Jacob Rees-Mogg or literally like a heroin addict in the street, and I will find something that you and I can conversate on.
And do you not like sitting in that little bit of silence in between conversations? Do you always try to make up the sound?
The thing is,
it's awkward bit, you know.
Yeah, when I'm with people, I hate silence. But then sometimes, when I'm on my own,
when you're
love
with that one person who you feel like you're on your own with, and you can both sit in silence together, and it's not.
Oh yeah,
that's the best.
Yeah. But they're the best relationship. So I have that with my old housemate Tom, and I also have that with Sarah. Obviously, sometimes I just don't say anything. I just stare out of the window.
And if you were going to give someone some advice who thought that they're going to have ADHD or autism, what's your sort of like main piece of advice if people are worried about it?
If they know they've got it, or if they're pre-diagnosed.
Pre-diagnosed.
I would say one of the things that I did a lot of is felt a lot of imposter syndrome reading about ADHD things when I didn't have the diagnosis. Like, fuck the diagnosis. If you feel that you have the symptoms, start reading up on your condition, start looking into ways that can help you manage that in lieu of you having the medication. Listen to things like this so you can understand that you are not alone. There's like millions of people. 5% of the whole of the UK population have ADHD. 1 in 5 people in the whole of the world are neurodivergent. We're like the biggest minority, right? So you are definitely not alone. And for autism, it's really important to do this because autism is 1 in 10 people. I need to remember this fact now. Autistics are 1 in 10 or 1 in 11, and they account for something crazy like 40. I don't know the exact number. I've said this before on the podcast. I think they account for 40% of all suicides, but they're only 10% of the population. So suicide and autism are really highly linked, and so the quicker you can get help, the quicker you can get people around you and talking to you about it, the better.
As well, if you are on a list for a diagnosis, there's no harm in doing. Everyone always says don't get on Google if you've got something wrong with you, but there are now specific pages and places that you can go to, and I think it's good to find the similarities.
100%, and that, like I said,
and usually you know yourself better than anyone else. You really do. You can question it a lot, but actually you know yourself better than anybody else. And if you do think you've got it, you probably have.
Yeah, and there's just so many things out there. I always say this. I did a talk the other day in Lambeth at this really like a big neurodivergent talk, and I was by far the most high functioning, by far. There were some severely autistic people there doing some amazing things, right? And you see autism on that side of the scale, and I was like, wow, it's so impressive that they can do these things. But I gave this one line at the end of my speech, which was, it's never been a better day to be a neurodivergent than it is today in the history of the universe, because we have so much stuff, and it will always be a better day tomorrow because you're one thing forward. So you always got to think how bad people had it 50 years ago, 40 years ago. Even yesterday was not as good as today, and tomorrow will always be better than today. So it's a very positive message that there's just so many tools now for autistic ADHD, but there's so many people talking about it freely. I mean, look, we've even I've literally left my job, created a product where you can literally be like, hey, I'm autistic, and these are like weird things I'll do. And I'm telling you that at the beginning, and no one's going to be like, oh God, like, that guy's weirdo. Like, I'm not going to go and date him. Like, I'm going to write there, like, never take me to, like, I hate F1. Like, it's so noisy for me. It, like, freaks me out. Like, I hate it. Though it's on the TV, I'm like, I can't be near it. Like, whatever it is, I literally have that on my profile. It's like, I literally cannot be near loud noise.
It's all about honesty.
Yeah, it's all about honesty, because if you're like, love F1, then don't date me.
Yeah.
I mean, be for someone, not for everyone, Hannah. Be for someone, not for everyone. It's the most important message I can give you. Take anything away from this, is be for someone, not for everyone. Stop trying to please everyone. It's not possible. No one in the world is perfect. Put all of the stuff that's going on underneath your bonnet out there, and the right person will receive it.
Love that. Thank you for being a Class A person.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
It was amazing. Thank you.